Hello everyone, it's Charlton. So they've arrested two people in connection to the shooting death of the 7-year-old girl in Houston, Jazmine Barnes. Right there, that's her picture there. And this had been, so it had the whole case took a turn when these two suspects were arrested, because this had been the sketch released of the of a potential suspect. He was, wanted. They were asking for the public's help in identifying and locating this person, and he was identified as white, by the witnesses and in the sketch. And it turns we don't know how that broke down, and why that's what the witnesses saw. But the two individuals that were arrested are black, African American, and it seems as though it's been a mistaken identity. That they believed this truck was another truck they had saw, or at least one of the suspects says this, saw the evening before, the day before, in the same Walmart parking lot. This happened in a Walmart parking lot, I think around 7 a.m. On the morning of December 30th. I don't know what day of the week that was. And they fired at the car with the mother, with I think three daughters in the back seat. I think the mother was actually hit in the arm, and the 7-year-old Jazmine Barnes was shot and killed, as I understand it. And so, but apparently it's a mistaken identity, and I don't know. I think I had seen earlier, I've been just trying to catch up on this, that it was gang related, but I'm sure we'll learn more. One of the two suspects was in court on this morning, who I believe is the person that's suspected of driving the truck, or driving the vehicle that shot it at the mother's vehicle. And he's right here in court. And then the other individual was in court, I think, maybe today too, I'm not positive, on an unrelated charge, a drug charge, and he was held, I think, without bond. And the prosecutors brought up the fact that he was a suspect in another shooting, and it's being reported that that he's going to be arrested in connection to this case as well. And I think he's the one who is in court for a drug charge, who's suspected of being the shooter. That is this individual here. His name is so it's Eric Black Jr. That's not Eric Black Jr. That's the person who was in court this morning being charged in relation to the case. And this is the person in court for the drug charges unrelated to this, but they suspect he will be charged, Larry Woodruff, and he is believed to be the shooter in the case. So here's this will explain a little bit better. Hopefully that all made sense. So this is Eric Black Jr.
This new video of suspect 20-year-old Eric Black Jr. appearing in court just before 5 this morning. The Barnes family attorney tweeted a picture of the sketch and a photo of the second suspect, 24-year-old Larry Woodruff, saying, quote, "Obviously, the men arrested don't fit the description of multiple witnesses or the sketch." Within the last hour, Woodruff went before a judge. ABC 13 reporter Catherine Marchand is live downtown with more on this story. Catherine.
Well, sources tell us that Larry Woodruff was the shooter. He has not been charged with capital murder, but he is being held on a drug charge right now. Take a look at that exclusive video. We were the only ones in court this morning when he appeared before a judge on that drug charge. When the judge was deciding on his bond, prosecutor said he's a suspect in a capital murder investigation. Did not say the Jazmine Barnes case, but did say he was a suspect in a capital murder investigation, and the judge told him he has possible additional charges coming down. The state also went into detail about his lengthy criminal history, which includes convictions for violence and weapons charges. His bond is $100,000. Now, the other suspect in the Jazmine Barnes case has been charged for capital murder and is being held without bond. Eric Black, he also appeared in court this morning. According to prosecutors, an anonymous source informed the sheriff's office that Eric Black was driving the car when Jazmine Barnes was shot. When authorities had a chance to talk to him, they say he admitted it. Investigators believe this was a case of mistaken identity.
Defendant Black told investigators that the pistol used in the shooting was at his residence. He signed a consent to search for the location, and investigators recovered a 9mm pistol, which was consistent with the caliber of shell casings recovered from the original scene.
Now, Now, look at this video. This was the truck that the sheriff's office thought the suspects were in, a red truck. But in court, we learned that Black was driving a dark-colored Kia. Another discrepancy, neither suspect looks like the Composite sketch, as you guys mentioned. The Barnes attorney said that the family may have confused a fleeing bystander for the actual shooter. The Harris County Sheriff's Office believes that Barnes and his family, though, and her family, rather, were innocent victims. We'll have more.
And I think I understand it now. It's actually, it seems as though it's a mistaken identity in both cases. In both the person who was identified, witnesses identified in a truck in that previous report. That was just an individual who was fleeing the scene, fearing for his own life because of hearing shots. But because it happened at the same time, some assumed that he was the one who shot. So that was one mistaken identity, apparently, and that's gone. But the other mistaken identity is the two who are accused of shooting at the mother with the 3 kids that killed Jazmine Barnes. That was a mistaken identity as well, and they've at least one of the suspects has admitted this to the police, and one of the suspects reportedly admits to the shooting. So, I believe the person who was driving the vehicle. So, and Sean King, who's a prominent civil rights activist, I think he got involved in this as well as maybe some. Well, he brought some attention to it. But the civil rights activist Sean King, who worked to push a reward up to $100,000 for identification of the killer, posted on Twitter Sunday morning that the driver in the truck was simply mistaken for a suspect as he drove away from the gunfire. It appears that man was an innocent bystander who fled, actually fearing for his own life. King tweeted, "He was not the shooter." On the morning of December 30th, just before 7 a.m., LaPortia Washington was leaving a Wallaceville Road Walmart with her children when gunmen drove up by and opened fire, leaving holes in the car, shell casings scattered across the shoulder of the feeder road. So, and she actually tried to drive to the hospital to save her daughter, but her tire had been blown out as well. She eventually had to pull over and call 911, and her daughter died. But her wounded daughter died of the gunshot wound to the head before paramedics could get her to the hospital. So, but it goes on to tell you about the 2 individuals who have been arrested and basically what happened here. And they were, at least one of them was pulled over. Both were in court this morning. One was actually charged with, I think, a murder charge, the person who was the driver. The person who's suspected as the shooter, Woodruff, was charged on unrelated and drug charge, but held on $100,000 bond. So it says, even once they had suspects identified, investigators didn't get either of the men into custody until Saturday when deputies at Woodforest, and Beltway 8 pulled over a gray Kia for failing to use a turn signal during a lane change. While searching the car, deputies allegedly discovered pot in the glove box and on the driver. When they realized the man was a murder suspect, deputies called out investigators. Black waved his right. Eric Black Jr. Eric Black waved his right to remain silent and told authorities what happened the morning of the killing. So he's the one who reportedly has admitted to the shooting. He'd been driving the vehicle, a rented, dark-colored Kia, and not a red pickup truck. The red pickup truck is the mistaken identity of the white man who witnesses thought was the shooter. He had been driving the vehicle, a rented, dark-colored Kia, and not a red pickup truck, with a man named Larry Woodruff in the passenger seat when they spotted a car they thought they recognized from earlier in the night. Woodruff allegedly opened fire out the window as the pair drove by. Black told authorities they didn't realize they targeted the wrong people until they saw it on the news, prosecutors said in court Sunday. 2 men returned the rental car and picked up a different one, the vehicle Black was driving when deputies picked him up Saturday. After his confession, Black identified the alleged shooter from a booking photo and told investigators where to find the murder weapon, a 9mm pistol, at his house. Because the victim was under 10, prosecutors were able to ask for a charge of capital murder. Even though it appears Black wasn't the shooter, he can be held just as culpable as the actual gunman under a controversial Texas law that holds accomplices equally responsible for slayings. All right, well, that is the story in there, and that better explains it. That's the Houston Chronicle, and that is the story there. That is the story there. All right, thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below, and I will see you in the next video. Later, man.